राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीर वनचारी। जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीर वनचारी। यमुना तीर वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल जय ओम विष्णुपद परमहंस परमशिवाचार्य अष्टोत्तरशत श्री श्रीमद् श्रील अभय चरणानंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्रील ठाकुर हरिदास की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय गंगा देवी की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्भागवतम की जय इस्कॉन बीबीथी संस्थापक आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गौ प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Jai Shri Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Nārāyaṇam namaskritya Nadam chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu Nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Krishne swadhamopagate Dharmajnanadibhisah Kalau nashtadrishamesha Puranarko dhunoditah Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. This is Canto 10, Chapter 46, entitled Uddhava Visits Vrindavan, and today we will discuss texts 32 through 36. Do we have it? Yasmin janaḥ prāṇa-viyoga-kāle kṣanaṁ samāveśya mano viśuddham nirhṛtya karmāśayam yāti parāṁ gatiṁ brahma-mayo rka-varṇaḥ. I'm just going to recite these because there's too many. Tasmin bhavantāv akhilātma-hetau nārāyaṇe kāraṇa-martya-mūrtau bhāvaṁ vidhattāṁ nitarāṁ mahātman kiṁ vāvaśiṣṭaṁ yuvayok su-kṛtyam. Let's skip the word for word as well, because there are just too many verses. I'll read the translation. Anyone, even in an impure state, who absorbs his mind in him for just a moment at the time of death, burns up all traces of sinful reactions and immediately attains the supreme transcendental destination in a pure spiritual form as effulgent as the sun. You too have rendered exceptional loving service to him, Lord Nārāyaṇa, the supersoul of all and the cause of all existence, the great soul who, although the original cause of everything, has a human-like form. What pious deeds could still be required of you? Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Madgavirapi Gopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampayaha Pitva Rishyayustat Priyajanaha. Sridhar Swami comments that we have these two verses form a natural pair because this constitutes Uddhava's prepared presentation to Nanda and Yashoda. In case anyone may have some doubt that what's so special about Nanda and Yashoda, so he's setting himself up, actually, for the reaction that his pre-prepared statement induces in them. And we will see, and he will also see, what is the character of these two devotees in pure love of Godhead. So he points out that the word karmāśayam here means the inclination for fruitive activities. In other words, karma vasana. We all have an inclination to perform fruitive activities. Have you noticed? It's very strong. It's like very difficult to control. So that's why it's so significant that this thing they have given up. Nirhṛtya means having given up, tyaktva. And anyone who does this actually will get the same result. What is that result? Parāṁ gatiṁ, the supreme goal. And that supreme goal is brahma-mayo swarupa jnanavan rka-varṇaḥ shuddha sattva mūrtihi, son. He gets a form of pure transcendental goodness, pure sattva guna, rka-varṇaḥ, shining like the sun, and characterized by the possession of intrinsic knowledge, which is spiritual, brahma-mayo. So this is something we should all look forward to. By our cultivation of Krishna consciousness, we can do this. We have only to desire it sufficiently. Krishna's ready. Are we ready? It's a choice, as we heard the other day. So that's what Sridhar Swami says. Jiva Goswami tells us, otherwise we wouldn't know, that Uddhava didn't see any signs of satisfaction in Nanda and Yashoda by whatever description he's given so far. And therefore he's going further. He's again describing the two boys in two verses. And he's using this logic of what to speak of anybody else. What to speak of Krishna Balaram, rather. If anybody absorbs his mind in this process, then he gets the same result. But these two boys are the goal of that result. This is the point, the implication here. He uses the singular because Krishna and Balaram are non-different. Yasmin. So any jiva who absorbs his pure mind without relation to the senses, even for a moment in Krishna, and at that crucial moment. What is the crucial moment? The time of death. We hear this from 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also. Then, even if he's impure, he immediately attains the supreme goal. And that manifests as the Lord's Sarup. Here he takes all these adjectives, brahma-maya and shuddha sattva, etc., not in reference to the soul, but in reference to Krishna. And this is what you get. You get that form of pure sattva guna, that form of intrinsic jnana, and that form that is made out of spiritual potency only, Krishna. So, and he attains, of course, a spiritual body as an associate of the Lord. He doesn't attain anything which disappears, like the objects of the senses matter. What does Krishna say about this in Bhagavad Gita? Those of us who are attached to things that appear and disappear, what does he imply? Na te shuramete buddhaha. The smart people don't even bother with that stuff. We have to come to this platform first. Then we can talk of these other things. So it's good that Uddhava is saying all these things because it helps us as well. Otherwise, we're too inclined to think that we already understand the transcendental sentiments of Nanda and Yashoda, isn't it? We have no clue, no idea. So, but these verses are relevant for us. Whether they're relevant for Nanda and Yashoda or not, that's subject to debate. But they're certainly relevant to us. And then Jiva Goswami also points out that this verse is described the Lord, or this soul for that matter, as rka-varṇaḥ. What does rka-varṇaḥ mean? The color of the sun. Have we heard this elsewhere? Jiva Goswami tells us, yes, we've heard it in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, which he quotes. Aditya varnam tamasah parastat. It's not only in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it's so many places, even in the Rig Vedas, if I'm not mistaken, part of the Purusha Sukta. So, And then we know in Ishopanishad Mantra 16 as well. Anybody know that verse by any chance? I know you've all memorized it. Ishopanishad text 16. It's not so easy to remember. Pushanne karshe yamasurya prajapatya vyuharashmina samuha tejo yatte rupam kalyanathamam tatte pashyami yosau vasau purusha soham asmi. The Mayavadis and other impersonalists like to quote from this Shruti mantra, soham. But the real meaning is that I'm as spiritual as you are, Lord. It doesn't mean I am you, but I'm every bit as spiritual as you are, in essence. This is the point. So he's addressing the Lord as Pushan. Who is Pushan? Pushan is one of the 12 Adityas, but actually all these names are names of Krishna only, and the Acharyas commenting on Ishopanishad tell us it means the Lord who is our nourisher. Just like we have Pushti Marga, right? Some devotees. Poshanam taranugraha. We are all maintained, according to the second canto, by the Lord's mercy. So the person who maintains us, he's Pushan. We're praying like that. My Lord, primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I. Okay. On text 33, Sridhar Swami says, it's been pointed out that they're both performing devotional service unto that cause of all souls and the greatest soul who is entirely perfect. And so they've both attained all that can be attained. They have nothing more to gain. Nanda and Yashoda, already perfect. We call Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect. Jiva Goswami adds that Krishna is the root form or the revealer of all Atmas, all the forms of the Lord and all the forms of the Jivas as well. They're all Atma. And who is that cause? Nārāyaṇe. But does he have 4 arms? Not exactly. That's not what Uddhava has in mind. Although he is Brahman in human form, martya-mūrtau. And he's telling Nanda Yashoda, you manifest anurag, attachment or bhava to him in the highest degree, more than Vasudeva and Devaki. O great soul, mahātman, you have the highest nature since you possess such anuraga. The word va indicates a movement of his eyebrow. What remains for you two to do? Everything is perfect. It only remains for Krishna to satisfy you. Now there are 2 readings here. In the verse, I think it says su-kṛtyam. You've already done everything perfectly. Also, another reading is swa-kṛtyam. You yourselves have already done everything. Virtually, it means the same thing, but that detail is there. Okay. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur adds to this discussion that the word su-kṛtyam, or required pious activity, indicates that for Nanda and Yashoda, nothing remains to be done. But for Krishna, something remains to be done. What is that? Natasya karyam karanam vidyate. We learn again from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. The Supreme Lord has nothing to do, but why does Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur tell us Krishna has something to do even though his parents have nothing more to do? What does Krishna have to do? Are we following this discussion? Uddhava has come here at Krishna's order. For what purpose? Why did Krishna send Uddhava to Vrindavan? Maybe people are afraid to answer.
See the devotion of the gopis and Nanda and Yashoda.
There are many reasons given. We heard them already in the beginning of the chapter, but Krishna has to pacify his parents. They're suffering so much, and this pains Krishna also. Even more than Vasudeva and Devaki, because at least they can take shelter of the transcendental knowledge that he's the Supreme Lord, God has no son, and God has no father, and all this stuff. But Nanda and Yashoda are thoroughly absorbed in Yoga Maya. And so for them, they really have to have his association. Nothing else will do. And Krishna is very conscious of that. We'll hear more about this in a few moments. But this is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Agamishyat yadirghena kālena vrajamachyatah priyam vidhasyate pitror bhagavan sattvatam patihi. Infallible Krishna, the Lord of the devotees, will soon return to Vraja to satisfy his parents. Priyam vidhasyate pitroho. This is the meaning. His only purpose in coming is to satisfy his parents. Purport. Here Uddhava begins to deliver Lord Krishna's message. Uddhava has already said what he had to say, and he saw that it's not working. Now he's presenting Krishna's message because he can understand these people are just too much absorbed in pain of separation. I have to say something that's going to work. So, Sridhar Swami says, Prastutamaha agamishyatiti pitroho yuvayoho. Yuvayo, as the word is used in this verse, it means his two parents. So, prastutamaha. What is the point that he brings to their attention? Agamishyati. I'm coming. I will return. He's reiterating the promise. Jiva Goswami tells us, Nanda and Yashoda did not become peaceful upon hearing Uddhava. Rather, by thinking of Krishna's qualities when his excellence was praised, they became filled with pain. Seeing them in this state, Uddhava then spoke, touched by their agony. Uddhava is beginning to have his epiphany, as it were. What does epiphany mean? A very deep realization that something dawns upon you all of a sudden. So Uddhava came with a preconceived notion. Sometimes when we go to see a pure devotee, we have some conception how he's going to deal with us, what he's thinking, how he's going to act. That doesn't work with pure devotees. Certainly it didn't work with Srila Prabhupada, am I correct? Could not, predictably unpredictable. This is the formula. Predictably unpredictable, because you cannot fathom Vaishnavir Vigya. What is that? Mudra Vignana Bhojai. You cannot understand a Vaishnava, pure devotee. So Uddhava miscalculated, it would seem. But he sees that these people are really, really deep. Their bhakti is gambhirya, very deep thing. So what can he say? All he can say is, he will return. Rest assured. Unfailing in his promise. That's why he uses the word achyuta here. Achyuta means he doesn't fall. If Krishna makes you this promise, he's going to deliver. This is what he's implying. He will soon return and create happiness by continual association. Priyam, that's the dear thing. He may create happiness because you're his parents. He must create happiness because you're his parents. He's controlled by your great prema, filled with parental love, and acts as your son. He will respond appropriately to you who are his parents. And then he quotes famous verse we all know, 4:11, Ye yata ityadi. So, he will do this because although he's Bhagavan, he's the protector of his devotees. That's why he says here, Sattvatam patihi. He reminds them, as the Lord of the Sattvatas, he's certainly going to try to please the Sattvatas, fulfilling their desires. Or even though he's Bhagavan and the Lord of the Yadus, he's controlled only by your love. This is the point. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur adds to this that Nanda and Yashoda might say that our dear child, because Uddhava is just a child to them. I've heard that you're very intelligent, but now I can see that you're actually not so bright. They can say this because they're elders. Because you're praising us. Alas, who else would let such a wonderful son, full of good qualities, leave his home and go out somewhere else? Who is there in the three worlds more unfortunate, degraded, and miserable than us? We're to be condemned by everyone. So Uddhava anticipated this statement. And that's why he speaks this verse. He knows what he can see. He's been described in the previous verses as, what is it? I forget the term. Buddhimatam Sattama, I think it is. the most foremost among all the smart people, Uddhava. So he can see things. He's not dense. Very sensitive person. He can understand what they're feeling. So he wants to console them in this way. Achyuta never falls from his promise. He will come very soon. He will stay and fulfill all of your desires. Priyam equals mano-viśuddham. Okay. Text 35. Hatva kṣanaṁ rangamadhye pratipam sarvasatvatam yad ahavah samāgatya krishnaḥ satyam karoti tat. That means, having killed Kamsa, the enemy of all the Yadus, in the wrestling arena, Krishna will now surely fulfill his promise to you by coming back. Again, he's continuing. Now, just as a little diversion for a moment, Bilva Mangala Stava, collection of prayers written by the great Thakur holding that name. He worships these two brothers, Krishna and Balaram. Why? He says, Vande Gaura Ghanashyamao Mallau Yadava Vallabhao Kamsa Dhvangsakara Kridao Gajadanta Varayuthao. I offer my respectful obeisances unto that pair of wrestlers, one fair, one dark, who armed themselves with elephants' tusks, who are loved by the Yadavas, and who killed Kamsa as a matter of child's play. So he's just immortalizing that event. And Uddhava is telling Nanda Yashoda here, he's already done this, so Zurur, he's coming back anytime. Just be patient. Sridhar Swami brings to our attention something, Krishna's own promise. Back in the last chapter, text 23, he said, Yata yuyam vrajattata vayam cha sneha dukhitan gyatin yo drashtam eshyamo vidhaya su-kṛtyam sukham. He told Uddhava, he told his father, now you shall all return to Vraja. We shall come and see you, our dear relatives who suffer in separation from us, as soon as we have given some happiness to your well-wishing friends. He doesn't even mention any names here, does he? Which well-wishing friends of theirs is he trying to give happiness to before he comes back to Vrindavan? Chiefly in Mathura. Why is he staying in Mathura? Why is he not coming immediately back? Vasudeva and Devaki are there. We'll hear more from Acharyas about this point. But he has to give them happiness also. They haven't seen him in years. They missed his entire Bal-Lila. Everybody know this Udupi Sri Krishna deity, Madhvacharya's worshipable deity. He's appeared in this world only to give happiness to the devotees who missed Krishna's childhood pastimes. Rohini, she's the one in Dwarka who was the sole witness of Krishna's pastimes here in Vrindavan. What he did here and in Gokula, she saw. And all the other queens in Dwarka, they wanted to see. And so they prevailed upon Rohini that, maybe can you just ask him to show us this form? And Krishna kept refusing. Finally, all together they came and they said, please show us your childhood form. We've never seen it. We all missed those pastimes. But we've heard so many things. Prabhupada says in the Krishna book that Krishna's childhood pastimes are the most attractive to everyone. Everyone knows. So that's why Krishna became this form. For a moment, he said, I'll show you this form. And he became this form of mischievous Krishna stealing his mother's churning rod and ropes. And then time's up, the darshan is over, and they all freaked out. They couldn't handle it. All the queens in Dwarka. They said, just stay in this form. We like this more. And Krishna said, no, I warned you. You should not try to go here. This is not for you. This is their thing. But they would not take no for an answer, and so he stayed as the deity form. That's where this deity of Madhvacharya came from. And now he's worshipped in Udupi. How he got there is another long story we don't have time for. But this is the point. Having said this, Krishna will prove it true. This is Sridhar Swami's commentary. He's trying to encourage them that don't worry, he will come. Jiva Goswami says this verse answers, in case they are doubting, that we can't believe that Krishna will return. The Vrijavasis have every reason to doubt whatever Krishna says. Other people may not doubt it, but Vrijavasis, they're not sure. So, having killed Kamsa, Krishna will fulfill his promise. This is the point of what Uddhava is saying here. Or another way to take it is that he's established through this verse the cause of Krishna's delay that we've mentioned already. That is his obligation to Vasudeva as his father. And he uses the present tense, karoti. That Krishna's doing this right now. Or another way to look at it, Jiva Goswami adds, is that having killed Kamsa, he remains with us, making true his vow that he spoke to you. So, either way you want to take it, Krishna's still there. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, after killing Kamsa and meeting you at the edge of Mathura, Krishna said, you return to Vraja and we will also quickly follow. Same verse he quotes. And he mentions all the same things, so. By the influence of Vagdevi, that is goddess Saraswati, Uddhava's words were actually true. Let's hear more about how this is so. This is the last verse for today. Ma khidyatam mahabhago dakshatah krishnam antike antarhriti sabhutanam aste jyotirivaythasi. O most fortunate ones, do not lament. You will see Krishna again very soon. He's present in the hearts of all living beings, just as fire lies dormant in wood. Purport by the servants of Srila Prabhupada. Uddhava understood that Nanda and Yashoda were very impatient to see Krishna, and thus he reassured them that Krishna would come soon. Here Sridhar Swami says, this verse addresses what they replied, that time is dragging on. We know from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how much is the time dragging on? A moment feels like 12 yugas. So Uddhava said, oh greatly fortunate pair, it may be now or maybe in a little while, but definitely you will see them again. Then Jyotirva Ethasi means, at least within the heart, there will be nothing that won't be seen. But just as fire isn't produced without rubbing from wood, even though it's intrinsic within the wood, it won't come out unless you rub the sticks together, correct? So similarly, Krishna is not seen without devotional service. But you already performed that devotional service. He mentioned already in text 32 we heard. So definitely Krishna is coming. It's just a question of when. This is the point. Jiva Goswami takes it further. He says, they couldn't tolerate the words, he will come. Why? Because that's future tense. They don't want future tense. They want now. Present tense. They want to hear that he's coming now. So again, Uddhava tries to console them. Do not lament. When Uddhava said that Krishna would return, Yashoda glanced at him. Yashoda saw that glance, and he exclaimed, O fortunate ones, fearing that they could not tolerate even a little delay in Krishna's coming. Uddhava then began teaching them, following the customary way of those who are trying to relieve another person's lamentation. But the point that he's making is very important. That point is that Krishna exists even within the antahakaranas of all living beings. What does antahakarana mean? Subtle body, sukshma sharir, mind, intelligence, and false ego. When you chant, hopefully with attention, then Krishna is there. And we don't believe it, but the fact of the matter is that Krishna is there. If we did believe it, then we would advance very quickly, but we don't believe it. This is our misfortune. But these two are not so misfortunate as us. That's why he calls them mahabhago, O greatly fortunate pair. Another subtle implication here, mahabhago, Oh, greatly fortunate, because no matter how bad things can get, anybody right now suffering under Sade Sati or Shani Dasha maybe? If so, you know. Things can get pretty bad, yes. Everything is failing, nothing works, delays, obstacles, difficulties at every step. You cannot get off the ground, practically speaking, because somebody's purposely trying to frustrate you. That's the whole intention. There's a person behind everything that happens. Don't doubt it. So anybody who's been through this, you know, it can always be worse. When I was in Saturn, I spoke to my god sister Govindadasi, and I was telling her all so many things, and she just shook her head and said, listen, it can always be worse. Some people were there in Sarasati. What do they end up? Quadruple paraplegics. As a result of some car accident, or in debt, or maybe in prison, or maybe you go insane, although that's more characteristic of Rahu and Ketu. Shani just makes you work really hard. But the point is that she was making is a valid one. It can always be worse, so count your blessings. This is the implication in Uddhava's use of this address. Oh, greatly fortunate pair. So, and then he gives an example. That Krishna is existing within the antakaranas of all beings, and what to speak of existing outside of them. The example is to show that Krishna has this aprakata nature. It's a good thing for us, because Krishna was here 5,000 years ago only. He's not here in the same way now. Srila Prabhupada was here some 50 years ago. He's no longer here in that way. Vapu is ended. It's not coming back. But there's an aprakat form, and we can take shelter of that. This is another instruction that is kind of, although it's spoken to Nanda Yashoda, but actually we can derive so much benefit from it. If we just chant with faith, and if we hear and try to recollect within our minds, Brahma Samhita says, then we can have the Lord's association again. Even though he's disappeared 5,000 years, gone. But Krishna swadhamo bhagate dharmajnanadabhisaha kalau nashtatrashamesha puranarko dunodita. We mentioned already. This Bhagavatam is here for this reason. But you have to open it, isn't it? Just like you don't get fire without rubbing the two sticks, you don't get the benefit of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Krishna's association, unless you open the thing up and read it. Every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, that we also chanted in the beginning. So, this is his aprakata nature. Now, here's another thing that Jiva Goswami is unfolding for us. Another thing that we would not have understood unless Jiva Goswami explained it to us. What is that? When Krishna was being bound by ropes, and when Krishna was eating dirt, and in other pastimes, only Yashoda saw his all-pervasive feature. Is it not a fact? Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Only few people could see at Jagannath Puri when he's dancing in all 7 groups. So others didn't realize this fact. And therefore he doesn't appear to them. He remains manifesting himself. This is the point Uddhava is making, but he remains within your hearts in this way at all times. You always see him. Why do you need his external manifestation? This is what Uddhava is trying to sell to them. If you desire, but even if you do desire that external vision, then certainly that will also take place soon. As Paramatma exists within all beings invisibly, fire exists within wood invisibly, similarly Krishna exists near you invisibly. You see him in the manifestation of Goloka, and he sees you close up. You see him also through the mind. And very soon you will see him through your eyes also. This is the point. Now Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains at length this last verse. He says, Nanda Maharaj would have said, oh, how great is our misfortune that our son, who would never abandon us and always tells the truth, is not returning. This is pratyaksha pramana. He's not coming. So we know he doesn't lie. The parents will never say that Krishna lies. Everybody else says that Krishna's lies. But his parents will never admit this. No, he's not like that. He's a good boy. All these things about, that's just rumors. That's their view. And so they have faith that Krishna is coming back, but at the same time, he's not there. How are they supposed to process this? So therefore, Uddhava is speaking this. He wants to console them. Uddhava said, you shouldn't lament. Very soon you'll be able to see him. Nanda said in reply, you say we'll see Krishna, but when? When will that be? Tomorrow? The next 10 days? The next year? With some consolation, we'll keep our life heirs from leaving our bodies until then. But if Krishna's not coming, meanwhile, which is their experience, then you should tell us truthfully. In other words, he's doubtful. He's telling Uddhava, be straight up with us. If he's not coming, just let us know, and we'll die. Then it's not a problem. But don't keep us half dead, half alive. So hearing Nanda speak like this, Uddhava considered, alas, what can I tell them? Put yourself in Uddhava's shoes. It's a tough situation. He can't say, there's nothing he can do to console them. He said, if they were just ordinary persons suffering from the absence of their ordinary son, then I could preach to them in the way that I've prepared my message already, and it would be over. But that's not the case, because their only attachment is Krishna, and Krishna happens to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In devotional service, isn't it a fact, everything becomes absolute in importance. Problems become absolute problems. Separation becomes absolute separation. Bliss becomes absolute bliss. This is the problem with Krishna consciousness. It's not like the material world. You can't deal with it. You can't dismiss the problems in Krishna consciousness just through gyan, mundane gyan, that is to say, atma tattva. It won't help, because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the whole point. Tamal Krishna Goswami used to say this was Srila Prabhupada's Mahavakya. Sometimes we see the acharyas, they have what they call a Mahavakya, the great saying. Like Shankaracharya, what does he say? Tattvamasi. This is his Mahavakya, several others as well. So, but Prabhupada's mantra was like, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because that makes all the difference. If Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then everything you're doing changes. And you have to recognize that. You have to deal with him in that way. Okay. So Uddhava's confused because I can't give them the ordinary advice about being detached when their only attachment is Krishna. You can't be detached from Krishna. That's conditional life. But how can I give this advice to Nanda, who's attached to Krishna as his son? He's not like Vasudeva, who upon seeing the godly powers of Krishna weakened his attachment to Krishna as his son. In other words, Vasudeva's Vatsalya Bhav was weakened when he got the Aishwarya Gyan. But this doesn't happen with Nanda, and Uddhava is seeing this now. Uddhava's, as we said, he's having his own revelations. He's having his own stunning epiphany about the character of these two devotees. Not only these two, all of them, the whole Braj. We've heard in the previous classes coming up to today, everybody in Vrindavan is wandering around in a state of abject misery, it would seem. Gopu Kumar Sa. So, this is what we're talking about. This is why one moment without him seems like 12 yugas or more. So, but by seeing Krishna's majestic powers that Uddhava was trying to preach to him about, Nanda only became more and more attached to Krishna as his son. I have such a wonderful son. Nobody's like my son. He could not weaken that attachment in any degree. And Uddhava's very impressed by this. very, very impressed, because nobody else has this. Nobody else has this attachment. Alas, even if the parents of an ordinary son die out of misery if they can't see him playing in their house. By our good fortune, the Lord himself played about in our house as our son. We lament bitterly if we can't coddle Krishna even for a moment. How then will we live without seeing him in our home? We are the most unfortunate, having been separated from him. So, this is the point. The knot of possessiveness tied tightly for Nanda and Yashoda. But not only for them, actually Krishna has the same attachment for them. It's reciprocal. The Natya, what is that? Bharat Muni, the author of Natya Shastra. What does he have to say about love? He tells us, when two persons are in love, it's not that one person's love is more powerful than the other person's love. What does that mean in Krishna consciousness, where everything is of absolute importance? It means your love is just as important to Krishna as Krishna's love to you, for you is to you. This is the point. So, Uddhava, seeing how strong their possessiveness is, even though he's told them that he's the Supreme Lord. And Krishna has the same sense of attachment to Nanda and Yashoda. And he says here, he refers back to the third verse of this chapter, when Krishna says, "Go to Vraj and make my father and mother happy. Remove the pain of separation from the Vraj gopis also, by giving them news about me." He cannot emphasize the gopis, because that would not be appropriate in Uddhava's company. So he has to emphasize the importance of his parents. But no doubt he's thinking of the gopis just as much as they're thinking of him. And for that reason also he sent Uddhava. Now, Uddhava is also remembering, back in chapter 26, text 13, I recall the words of the cowherd man which I previously heard. Dushyajaschanurago asmin sarvesham no vrajau kṣanaṁ nandate tanaye smaso tasyapi opattika katham. Dear Nanda, how is it that we and all the other residents of Vraja cannot give our constant affection for your son? And how is it that he is so spontaneously attracted to us? This is the point that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is trying to prove here. It's not just a one-way street. It's not just that Nanda and Yashoda are pining away in absence of Krishna, but Krishna is also feeling their separation very acutely, and this is his proof. 10th canto, chapter 26, text 3, he quotes it. So Uddhava has a dilemma now. If I go to Mathura and bring Krishna here tomorrow, then Jarasandha, being angry over Kamsa's wives becoming widows, they will come and destroy Mathura while I'm gone, and while Krishna's gone. And who then would protect Vasudeva and Devaki and the other Yadavas? But if Krishna leaves Vraja again and goes to Mathura to protect them, then the Vrajavasis will certainly die, because who knows when he'll come back again. It's taken all this time to even get some promises. So he's in a real spot, Uddhava. There's not much he can do. If I tell the Vrajavasis that Krishna will come in 4 or 5 years, it will be very hard for them to hold on for that long. These gopis, they can't even tolerate the closing of their eyelids. So how are they going to tolerate 4 or 5 years? It's impossible. If I lie, Uddhava thinks, telling them that Krishna will come here after 4 or 5 days, then when that time expires and they discover that I lied, then again they will die and I will be finished as well, like Akrura. I've never seen Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur anywhere in his commentary on the 10th canto say anything nice about Akrura. Either it's neutral or it's negative. Because he cannot give up that mood. He's one of those gopis. So Uddhava is thinking, this curse will be on me as well. Poor Uddhava. This is why Uddhava spoke this Atma-gyan only to Nanda and Yashoda. This is why. He couldn't say anything else. Sometimes when you're preaching to someone who's just terminally on the mental platform, there's not so much you can say. You just have to preach matra sparchastu kanteya. Because until they're willing to give up that mental platform, they're not going to be pacified. But in Nanda Yashoda's case, there's no question of giving up that mental platform. It's impossible for them. They're nitya siddhas. What do we call this? 2 classes of nitya siddha devotees. The ragatmikas and raganugas. The ragatmika devotees, if you take away their atma, then what is left? Nothing. So, alas, there's no other means. So now let me at least try to weaken their prema by discoursing on ordinary spiritual knowledge, he says. However, if Nanda Yashoda's unlimited and unfathomable pure love for Krishna not only remains unchecked, but rather increases after hearing my discourse, then all I can do is return to Mathura and simply glorify their incomparable prema again and again in the grand assembly of Krishna, Vasudeva, Ugrasen, and all the others. This is what Uddhava decided to do, therefore. He had no other option. And that's what he did. He left. Gopis remained in Vraja. Nanda Yashoda remained crying. Everybody's still there. Uddhava left. What could he do? So, having decided this, he meditated on Krishna and spoke about Krishna as the super soul. And we've heard the example many times now. You cannot bring out fire from within wood without rubbing, and so without this friction, without devotional service, you cannot see Krishna. So, now, what did Nanda and Yashoda think about this? Vishwanath Chakravarti tells us, and then I'm ending. They thought, Uddhava is telling us that if we don't perform devotional service as the Vaishnavas do for our son, then why would he appear in our house? If that's the case, then let us perform devotional service for our son so that somehow or other he will appear in our house. See how simple their faith is. Would that our faith would be so simple. Prabhupada has told us the same thing, has he not? You just perform devotional service and Krishna will come. But we don't believe it. This is our misfortune. We're really misfortunate. So, after Uddhava returned to Mathura, Nanda and the cowherd men, their eyes brimming with tears, said, Manaso vrittayo nasyu Krishna padam bhujashrayaha vacho bidhaya nirhṛtya nam kayastad prahvanadisho. O fortunate one, may our minds rest on Krishna's lotus feet, may our voices always sing his names, and may our bodies offer him respects. We can all pray in the same way, following in their footsteps. That's from the 10th canto, chapter 47, text 66. The Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is showing us that Uddhava's preaching to the parents of Krishna was actually successful because they took his advice at face value. If we perform devotional service, Krishna will come back to us. And that's what they did. So, unfortunately, the time is up now. There's so much more to say about this. And there's so much more that has been said about this by various acharyas in various places. But it's time to stop. So maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions, if anybody. It's way over my head. I can't really say much about this. I'm just trying to read whatever I've heard. Okay, so we'll stop here. Oh, there's one question. Sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Prabhuji, we said talk about
Take the microphone about half an inch away from your mouth, and I'll hear better. Thank you.
So what I'm saying, every scripture, every saint talks about love, talks about offering everything to Krishna, talks about surrender. But I'm not getting the answer how. Forget love, forget surrender, offering. How to offer our actions, all our actions to Krishna? Is it just a dialogue, standing in front of the idol of Krishna and just is it a dialogue I am offering everything? How to offer?
Practically, you're asking a practical question. What are the details involved here? So, it's a science, Prabhupada often used to tell us, and it's a very consistent and very systematic science, but it requires some training. That science begins with the tongue, and with the tongue we take Krishna prasadam and we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But we have to try to associate with those who are practicing this process and learn from them. We exist here mainly for the purpose of facilitating that interest, and I suggest that you go to the Matchless Gifts bookstore right around the corner and you purchase some of Srila Prabhupada's books and you read, because these things are all described in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, for example, tells us, Yad karoshi yad ashnasi yad johoshi dadasi yat ityadi. Whatever you're eating, whatever you give away, do that as an offering unto me. How to do that as an offering unto Krishna? That you require some guidance, and therefore he tells us, Tad vidhi pranipatena prashnena sevaya. You find a bona fide guru and have him train you. But the main vehicle, I should say, through which we begin to get a sense of devotional service in practice is associating with other devotees who are following the process. If that's what we do, then automatically we will be carried along and we will learn hote. It takes little time, but we will definitely get a very clear sense of what needs to be done in any given time, place, and circumstance. That's about the best I can say in a few moments, but please take up this process very sincerely. Please associate with devotees and read Srila Prabhupada's books while you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The results will fascinate you. Okay? Anything else? Then we will take your permission to end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.